I'll stick on. I'll stick to the Talk and Show podcast. Um, I'll stick on record, right, and we get it going. And yeah, man,
Yeah,
it's no. I've literally, when I do these podcasts, I like to do them in a state of flow with no questions written down. I just like it
cool.
to be like a conversation as friends, just sitting down having a chat,
Yeah,
and someone can get something out of it. You know what I mean? And when I had a chat with you, I found your story really motivational, man. And
cool.
so you're gonna help a lot of people with your story,
I
man.
hope
So
so.
yeah, so we just have the chats, man, see how it goes, and we
Yeah,
go
yeah,
from there. Sound good?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Sweet, bro.
definitely.
Sweet, sweet.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll do my jazz
your intro.
FM voice. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Right, sorry, man. Just hold on there. Just make sure my phone is on silent. Okay. Hello, friends. How are you? How are you getting on? I hope you're having a lovely, gentle day. And my name is Colin, and this is the Sober Mess podcast. And you're very welcome. Today, I'm absolutely over the moon and chuffed to have my good friend Dave Kerrigan on the podcast. I was introduced to Dave a few months ago down at the 40 foot, and Dave, I suppose he's the proud owner of a very, very motivational life story. And when he told me a story, I found it so motivational that I said, look, man, I think you're going to help a lot of people with this. I've just been able to kind of have a chat on the podcast. I'd love you to come on and just share it and just how, other people's kind of own hardships can transcend onto hope for other people. Like, you know what I mean? And yeah, I just found Dave it's such an incredible person, and I just was trying to get him onto the podcast. So I'm absolutely over the moon to be able to have a chat with him today. So Dave, how are you, brother?
Hiya, Collie. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Glad you found the story motivational. Mad old story, but yeah, kind of coming out the other side of it now, which is great.
Yeah, man, delighted. Delighted to get you on. I can't believe you got over that time you woke up and there was no milk in the house. It's such a brave story, man. How did you survive? Oh my God.
It's tough times.
Tough time. There's no worse, man. When you wake up and looking forward to a cup of tea and there's no milk in the house. Yeah, man. No, thanks a million for coming on. And yeah, man. So
No
like,
problem.
I suppose, like what, like I suppose we just go. Do you want to kind of just go from the start and you can tell us a story, like, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Do you want? Yeah, I suppose I'll kind of give you a background to what I was kind of feeling leading up to this whole thing. So
Mm,
I'd been experiencing pain for, when I looked back on it, probably about 15 years. All sorts of different pains. Like I was playing a lot of sport. I would have played football all the time, rugby, skiing, loads of different things. So when I was feeling all these pains, I just put it down to sports injuries, and I went to, like, I remember being in school and I was sent to a physio for a shoulder pain. I just thought it was a rugby tackle or something like that. So
mm,
I went to the physio, and they didn't really, nothing came out of that. And then as the years went on, I was getting more and more kind of just random different things happening to me. I had sciatica at one stage. I had what else I had? I'd have like splitting headaches as it kind of got worse and worse. And if I was in the gym, it would feel like there was someone shoving. The only way I can describe it all the time is like an ice pick underneath my shoulder blade, and my shoulder blade was winging. So it was, my
well,
shoulder was coming forward, and it felt like it was almost dislocated. Um, so um, I went and did a number of different tests. I'd been to like physios, osteopaths. I went to a doctor at one stage. I went to my local GP when I was living over in London for about 7 years. And I went to my GP, and at this stage I kind of knew there was something going wrong, because I couldn't move my head from left to right really more so than a few inches.
and when you were like going to the GP, were they kind of just saying it's like more of a kind of like a muscle injury or could be a sports related injury?
Yeah, like I think with GPs it's really difficult because they're a
Mm,
general practitioner, so
yeah.
they're like they're not specialized in anything specifically,
Mm,
so they're like looking at you as a whole,
yeah,
so
yeah,
they're relying on what you say, and because I didn't know what it was, I like I was going out all the time at that stage, and I was out like
yeah.
only once a week now. Like I wasn't out. I've never been one to like drink like every single night of the week or anything like that. But if I did
Hey,
go out,
you
it
don't need
was
to feel guilty about your drinking now because you're talking to
yeah,
me.
yeah. No, but
I'm
like
ticking the little boxes here. Yeah,
it's a
he's an
sober
alcoholic.
podcast, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
I have to tee it all up.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's an
Um,
intervention.
but yeah, so like I told I remember going into into the podcast, into the GP and telling her what I drank, just being honest, because no one ever does. And she I definitely shouldn't have, because she sent me a letter for AA and she tried to send me to AA, and I was like, oh my god, this is not what I need. And
Yeah.
at this age, I was like going mental. Like I was knew something was wrong with me, so I rang them up. I
Yeah.
shouted at someone for a bit, and they were like, "Look, I'm sorry." Got me another GP, and they said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I know there's something wrong with me. Like I'm not sure what it is. Like I was even actually when I go into, I'm remembering all different things. These things will just pop up into my head. But I was like sweating profusely. Like if the
Wow.
doctor would be like, "Are you all right?" And I just couldn't stop sweating. I'd be sweating shirts through and everything. Like I have red hair and everything, and I like I heat up very quickly anyway. But it wasn't that, and it was just all like my body was going mad. Like there was all
Mm,
these things going on. So I asked to see a specialist, and they sent me to a specialist. He actually, before this, I had an operation on my left arm to free what they thought was a trapped nerve, because it was giving me these like spasms across my chest, and I felt
mm.
like I was having a heart attack all the time. And also that was probably panic attacks and stuff, which was just sort of coming on from all of this. But yeah,
Wow.
I went to the specialist.
And
They he Yeah, go on.
when did you like know that it was getting like it was serious? Like when did you know that hey, this
Um,
isn't like just normal kind of stuff? Like there is something more. Like what kind of prompted you to want to see a specialist?
so like one of the scariest things that happened to me, and just being really blunt about it, is like I couldn't control my bladder at different
Okay.
stages, but this didn't happen all the time. So
Mm,
I think especially when you're a guy anyway, well, I don't know if it's just when you're a guy, but sometimes you're just not good at speaking about things or owning up
mm,
to it, and
mm.
just being honest with yourself, really.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know who to turn to, which was
Yeah.
stupid. Like I should have just spoken about it, because it
Yeah. No. No.
probably would have been seen earlier.
Yeah, being there, man. But it's mad. It is a real bloke thing that we have to wait until the fire alarm is going off before we address an issue, be it with our mental health or our physical health. Usually we have to wait till we kind of things get really bad, and then finally I might go to the dentist or I might go to the doctor. Like the reason I said
Yeah,
dentist because it was only
exactly.
recently. I like it's obviously not as bad as what you had. Like I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
remember waiting till the bitter end. Like I had a toothache and taking painkillers, and then like I had because I'd only take paracetamol, and then it just got
yeah,
so bad that I couldn't sleep at night, and then eventually
yeah.
I went to the doctor. But like that's been my life story with every like even with my mental health that I wait until the bitter end and before I open up and do something about it. Like,
Yeah, and then it all builds up, and
mm,
it becomes this like thing where it's so much worse.
mm,
Like whereas if you would just kind of, and I try and do this now more, like if tackle something initially, so it doesn't become a big mountain to climb in the end.
mm.
Um,
That's mad, isn't it? And
yeah,
it's funny you were saying there about the panic attacks, and I
mm,
remember I was a couple of years ago, I had I nearly fainted. I had an episode where I couldn't breathe, and
yeah,
I didn't know what was going on. And I remember googling the symptoms, and I was having panic attacks. But I googled the symptoms, and I didn't know about anxiety at the time. And like the symptoms of anxiety correlates with cardiac arrest, like you're having a heart attack. And I thought it was like
yeah,
having a heart attack. So I googled it,
yeah,
shortness of breath, heart palpitations, feeling dizzy, feeling like fainting. And I was crap, I'm gonna die. And I remember going into the hospital, and the doctor kept me in overnight, and you know, they done all these checks on my heart, and they said, look, you've a good, everything's fine, your heart rate is perfect, you know, every day you're sleeping at night, your heart rate dropped a bit, but you know, there's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing at all wrong with your heart, like, you know what I mean? And I remember then the doctor coming in the next morning and saying, like, like there's nothing wrong with you, you know, you're just you're just mad. Like, I was like, what do you mean I'm
Yeah.
mad? Like, he's
Yeah.
like, it's anxiety, and it's you know, you're having panic attacks, and you know what's going on in your life, like. And I like that, man. I was never able to talk about it. I was just, if we can throw it in the back seat and get on with my life, I will. If we can throw a layer of paint over the cracks, I will. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And usually
Which is
addressing
crazy, isn't it?
things is a drastic action. You know what?
Yeah.
Do something about the problem? No, not till I have to. Not until like
Yeah.
the boat's sinking and I've no other choice. And like
Yeah.
that, I've learned to address things. Like when I hear the whispers, you know, listen to the whispers before you hear the screams. Like, you know what I mean? So if you
Yeah.
hear them little whispers, be able to address it a lot sooner, like, you know. And that's
Yeah.
the, I suppose you only learn that through experience, and going, oh, I wish I kind of had just looked into that a lot sooner, like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like it's funny you say you went into the doctor when you thought you were having a heart attack. The same thing happened to me a few times. I went into the doctors because I just didn't know what it was. It feels like you are having a heart attack. And I'm not naturally a nervous person. So it was obviously building up all this stuff that I wasn't speaking about, and it was just
Mm.
coming out in physical form. And
Yeah,
like so much so I rang 112 in London because I was telling my housemate, I was like, look, I'm getting all this like feeling on my left side. And he was like, I said, I'm going to go into the hospital. And he goes, ring 112. So it describes all my symptoms. And they sent an ambulance out. And I was like, no, we don't need an ambulance. And they were like, sit down, Mr. Kerrigan, sit down. Are you alone? Who's in the house with you? And an ambulance arrived at the door. A lad like hooked me up to an ECG thing, and he gave me the form, and it showed all my heart rate was completely normal. So I actually just kept that to remind myself that like it was all kind of in my head.
yeah,
And
it's mad, isn't it?
it's weird.
Like, I remember, like, that time I got when the doctor came up to talk to me, and I remember sitting in bed, and he comes over to Colin. He goes, It's in your head." I'm like, oh Jesus, it's after spreading to me head. Like, what? Am I? He goes, "No, like you're a hypochondriac." I said, oh, don't tell me I have that as well. Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? I'm freaking out, like, you know. And it's like I
Yeah, yeah,
wanted him to diagnose me. He's like, "There's something wrong." After that, come on, there is something
yeah,
wrong. It's like you're looking for him, but like that with
yeah,
anxiety, man. And one of my mantras is like, the feelings of anxiety are uncomfortable, but they cannot harm me, and they will pass. And when I remember that, and even when I'm having panic attacks, I say, oh, this won't kill me. I'm gonna be okay. And I
yeah,
haven't had a panic attack in a long time. But I remember
yeah.
when I
Same
was,
as
being
yeah,
able to say that, like, this is extremely uncomfortable, but I'm okay. I'm not gonna die, you know. And
yeah.
being able to reassert myself and say, look, I'm okay here. And a great tip I got as well when I was having panic attacks is that if you even sip water when you're having a
Mm,
panic attack, that your brain can't focus on two things. So when you're ever feeling anxious, just have a little sips of water, and it brings you back into the present moment, that your brain isn't taking off with a million different problems. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
that's the thing with anxiety, that our head, we have these brains that are programmed to look and find and solve problems, so we're constantly chewing on problems. It's an incredible tool to have at the right time, but
yeah,
if we're always using it all the time, you know, it's only a matter of time before we get anxious, like, you know.
yeah. I don't know where I heard this from or if I made it up myself, but I no, I definitely read it. I wasn't smart enough to make this up, but it was something to do with like if you're having an anxiety attack, um, feel that you want like face into it and be like, yeah, I want more of this, and you just like you're telling your body like bring it on, like I want more of the anxiety, and just like and then it just like sort of fizzles out. It's weird. Like you like the more you want it, it kind of just becomes like you know it's an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
And that works for me. And also what you said about just thinking that this is something that'll pass. It's not permanent. Like it's
Mm.
and once I'd had one, I became more able to manage them. And I like you, I haven't touched wood now, haven't had any for a few years, which is great. But like it's a scary thing when it does happen.
Yeah, no, it is. And you know, like that, man. When I find that my biggest critic like isn't anyone else. No one else is gonna tell me what I've already told myself. And that anxiety to like, putting myself down, that inner anxiety. And when I find that inner critic or that inner anxiety starting and, pointing out all my faculties and everything I'm doing is wrong, and I say to myself, we're the opponent, you know what I mean? Because I find that's my challenger today. It's all in my head. It's not anyone else or anything out there. It's my own unhealthy thinking patterns. It's my own procrastination. It's my own
Yeah,
inner critic. And when all that stuff sets off, like what you said, I say, we're the opponent. Something that's going to challenge me today. Some test that I need to overcome. And every battle I'm having is always is in my head. They're the hardest. That's the hardest critics you'll ever need to convince is in your head. And I find that as soon as I'm able to do that, I feel so much better. I feel like that. I'm I'm like believing in myself, and that's what always comes down to self belief. You know what I mean? That
yeah,
no matter what's going on with our anxiety or in life, is that we can always believe in ourselves, and that's the be all and end all. Like, you know what I mean? And some days
yeah,
you're feeling low, and it's really hard to find that self belief, and you're just living off that inner critic. Like, you know what I mean? That it's like nothing else exists. Like, you know what I mean? Just
mm,
that in our head. But I find that when I can learn to like just stop assuming that things aren't attainable and just start believing in myself that they are. I'm the only one that decides what is and what isn't attainable in my life.
yeah, 100%. Like I'm a big believer in thinking positively about things, and not thinking something's impossible. I think everything is possible. It might be really, really hard or highly unlikely that you'll be able to do something, but there's a way to do it.
Mm,
And if you take it in little steps, you'll be able to get there.
yeah,
Like people going to the moon and like all like crazy things, like people like the first time someone might swim across an ocean or something like that. People would have thought it was impossible, but there are ways to do it. And it's just kind of thinking positively about them, like all these massive tasks, well, that you feel are massive tasks, and just breaking them down into a manageable way, and not getting over stressed about them, and thinking like,
mm,
oh, like I don't know, like all the inner voices that go on in your head, not taking them
yeah,
too seriously. Like they're just a lot of them are just crazy thoughts, and they're not
yeah,
the way you might be thinking. Like your brain just
mm,
fires thousands of thoughts through your head all the time. It doesn't mean that's the way you are, or that's the way you're thinking. Like there's um it's just that's just the way we are. It's just kind
mm.
of, I suppose, slowing down and yeah, trying to accomplish things helps me anyway.
Yeah, I love that. And it is that thing that, like, to recognize how far we've come, that if we're going to compare ourselves to anyone, compare yourself to the person you were yesterday. That we fail to recognize, like, you're talking about like making it to the moon, swimming across these channels and things that you'd view as completely unattainable. And, even if you today went from like you talk about the couch to 5K and, people that are like what even a year ago, the lockdown and recognizing the stuff that we've overcome. And you don't have to run a million marathons to feel a sense of achievement. Even
Yeah,
coming through the last year was an extremely stressful year for anyone. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Your whole world and your whole reality, as it's completely changed. Like, you know what I mean? That and that
yeah,
it can be scary. And even to come through that and to see positivity in that is really a really phenomenal thing. So to even to recognize Jesus where I
yeah,
was a year ago, what I've learned, what I know, that I have a sense of resilience at me, that even that a global pandemic can't stop me or can't take away my hope and my positivity. And I find that powerful as well, to never always see how far you've come. Like whenever feeling low, count that count your blessings and say, wow, I've come so far today. And I'm so grateful that I used to be this and now I'm this, like, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
yeah, it's mad. Like you think things are completely unattainable, and then when we actually go towards them, we can see, wow, I can. All again, it's just a fact that we own self belief.
yeah, yeah. Now we're all constantly learning, and like as you said, like if you look back on yesterday, you might have had a really difficult day yesterday, but like you've learned something from it. And you can just, one thing that I try and do now, if I have a bad day or I'm feeling down, I'll I'll allow myself feel that way for one day, because it's natural to feel shit sometimes, and everyone does. But not letting it become something that takes over my life. So when I get up then in the next morning, I decide that I'm going to be positive about it, and move on and do something positive, and
Yeah.
just not let that sort of take over my life, because it can do really easily, and it's almost easier to think negatively about things and just, oh, I can't do that, or I can't do
Mm.
this. It's the easy way out. But when you start like working towards something, and breaking it down, and going, oh, I did that. I didn't think I could do that. Or like doing a 5K, like you said, or even doing 1K. Like if you
Mm.
walk 1K, that's a huge achievement for some people. Like it's everyone's challenge is relative to them. Um, so it's not comparing yourself to other people, like just taking whatever you want to do, not worrying
Yeah.
too much about other people's thoughts, and just kind of going for it.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like when you were saying about the specialists and things like that, like
Yeah.
what happened next after that?
Yeah, so yeah, probably trailed off there for a bit, but
This is a good
so
good school. I love going down these rabbit holes. I was thinking to
I'm
myself,
off of
I
it.
could keep going, and everything you were saying was resonating with me, and I said, right, I'll try to go back to it, try back because your story is incredible, and I was like, right, I'll try to get back to that, and then let's talk
Yeah,
about me kind of,
yeah.
yeah, cheers, man.
Yeah, so I went to the specialist, and he said that he was going to do I had done a nerve conduction test before, which is basically they put these little nodes on your fingers and send electric pulses up to see if your nerves are responding. He was thinking about doing that again, and he decided, right, I'm going to send you for an MRI just as a precaution. So I went in, did an MRI. For anyone that doesn't know, it's kind of like you lie down on this um, mat almost, and then it puts you into this tunnel, and it's very close to your face, and it's pretty scary, because like there's this hammering noise the whole time. They were going to scan my neck and my shoulder, and then while I was in there, I was pulled out after about 15 minutes, and the radiologist, or whatever the name of the person that is that does that, was saying that a doctor had been in and seen my scan while I was in there, and had seen a contusion on my neck. And I was like, what's a contusion? And he kind of sidestepped the question. He said, we don't want to do your shoulder anymore. We want to do the rest of your spine. So I was like, okay, and not really thinking anything of it. So instead of it being a 15-minute MRI, it was a full hour, and you can't move at all for the full hour. Then I left, not thinking anything of it. And I was in work the next day, and I got a call around 10 a.m. And it was someone going, hi, is that David Kerrigan? And I said, yeah, it's him. And he was like, this is Matthew Crocker. I'm one of the head neurosurgeons in the London region. And I have your MRI results here in my hand. And I just remember everything just kind of slowing down then. And I was like, oh no. And he was like, you have your your um your MRI results show that you have a growth on your spinal column, and I'm going to need you to come in and see me tomorrow morning in hospital. And he named the hospital south of London.
And what
And
age were you at the time?
I was 28. It was a week before my 29th birthday, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was a week before my 29th birthday. um so yeah, like I was just like, like it's hard to know what it just kind of hits you like a ton of bricks, and a
Yeah.
sick feeling in your stomach, because you start to think, right, something's wrong now. But I didn't
What
ask enough questions.
what was the first thing that came into your head?
Like I didn't know, shock.
Mm.
I was just, because you kind of almost, I've said it before, almost like small bit like relief, because I knew something was wrong, and then I'd been searching for what this thing was for years and years, and people telling me, like physio told me I had a curved spine, which wasn't true at all. And all these like crazy diagnoses that just because it's so rare what I had, it's just really hard to spot.
Wow.
But so I went in anyway. I went into this hospital then the next morning, and my ex-girlfriend at the time wants to go in with me, and I was just like, no, I need to go in by myself and deal with this myself. So I went in, and it was I was just like, I'm going to be really positive about this. I remember in the waiting room, like people moving around and everything seemed normal. Then you get called into a room, small little gray room, and I really liked the doctor immediately. Like, he broke everything down, like really honestly and truthfully. He didn't try and overcomplicate things, so he made it that I could understand it. But it turned out that I had a rare benign tumor called a hemangioblastoma, which they can grow in your spinal column or in your brain. Mine was at the back of my neck, and on the C2, C3, which is the different rungs of your spinal column. And he showed me the actual MRI scan, so it's more detailed than like an X-ray. It's almost like it's a black and white photo, and it was a black mark in the middle of my spinal column, and there's fluid that goes around your nerves, which I didn't really know before, but it was expanding. So like it was pressing out, and that's what was causing me to get all these spasms and pains over the years. And he said, like, look, we don't know if this is growing on your nerves or where it is in your spinal column, but basically all the fluid is expanding and it's putting pressure on all your nerves. And he was like, have you been dropping things? Have you burnt yourself recently? Have you lost your balance? I remember feeling, when he asked me those questions, I felt pretty scared, because like they're not being really medically knowledgeable myself. I was just like, geez, they're pretty serious questions to ask people, because that's like, are you losing your feeling? Are you losing your balance? And all
Wow,
these sort of things. And yeah, so he there had been loads of different things that had happened. Like my back had gone on nights out where I was bent over backwards, like where I couldn't stand up. That happened 4 times, and it just like, I've lost all physical power in my like abs and couldn't pull myself up. And I said my right shoulder was kind of on a swivel almost, and if I was doing a chin up or a press up or anything, I was more doing it with my left arm. So all these things that and countless other things like pains in my knees and stuff. He said all these things that you had been experiencing, and your loss of being able to control your bladder and stuff like that. He was like, that could get worse, and that could get worse really quickly. And if it does get worse, because it's nerves, it's irreversible. So you basically, you have 2 choices. And I was like, what are they? And he said, you can leave it, and a lot of people do leave it, especially when they're older, because they take the risk that like the operation's really risky. They just leave it. But he said it can get a lot worse. Or the other option is that you can have an operation, and it's a more serious operation than like trying to remove a brain tumor. I'm not saying a brain tumor is like it, that's obviously has all its own complications, and people that go through that sort of stuff. I took a lot of strength from people that I know that have been through that sort of stuff. And also mine was a benign tumor, but basically where it is on my neck, it was on my nerves. So, well, I didn't know if it was on my nerves, but until they cut in. So if you less than millimeters, like either side, if you cut anything, it could have like irreversible effects. And that's like your breathing, your every movement from the neck down. And he's kind of explaining all that to you as you're making your choice.
So the choice is, if you keep there, it could get a lot worse, and potentially paralyze you and become terminal, or you could have this high risk operation. to get it
Yeah.
removed, but it's high risk and it could have consequences.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
mad like where do you even start to come to terms with a decision like that, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Like,
most people are deciding, like, get a latte or a cappuccino, like.
yeah, it was, it really like put things into perspective very, very quickly. Like nothing else mattered except for being in that room at that time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I remember like as he was talking, I wasn't taking everything in. I took the bits at the start in, but I was just looking out this window and it was really like gray and rainy. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I like just everything just wasn't working for me. Like I was just,
Just in
but
shock.
yeah, I was just, it was, there was relief there definitely because I was like, I know what it is now.
Mm.
Um, so I was like, I repeated the two decisions. I was like, right, so I can leave it there, and it slowly gets worse, and potentially irreversible. And he didn't say it could go to paralysis, but that was basically what it was being insinuated, like, you know. So all of that had sort of, it was going that way. And then the other choice was to have an operation that he said, as operations go, it's probably one of the riskiest because it's on your spinal column and it's where your nerves are.
Mm.
Um, so for me, there was no, like, I decided pretty quickly. I was within a few minutes, I'd say, that I was going to have the operation because I was sporty. I was 28, nearly 29. I had what I saw my whole life ahead of me, and it didn't make sense to take that, just continue getting slowly progressively worse. That would have been awful for me. Um, so I just decided to have the operation, and you have to. He gives you something to sign, and it says all these different things that you can happen to you, like I don't know, like loss of feeling, nerve damage, paralysis, and then the last one's death. And they have those just like
Wow.
written out with commas between them, and then you have to sign something underneath. Um, and like it's mad. And then and I remember, I don't remember much more of the meeting. It was I think the operation was a month and a half later. But when I left the room, I just I I rang my ex at the time and I just broke down when I like on the phone. I had to hang up on her, and I was just getting this bus home, and it like the next month and a half was like very, very mentally tough.
Yeah, man. Like I say, that's insane. Like even getting the bus home, and what I like when you're going through, so like I can't obviously comprehend like the massive like where like in your head, having knowing that is coming up and the shock and the trauma of that. And but I just know when I remember I was really like suffering in with my mental health, and you know, just like that, trying to get on with life and just looking at other people walking to work and getting the bus and being like, do
Yeah,
they not even know what's going on? And it feels like the whole
yeah,
world is just getting on and you've stalled and you're kind of still coming to terms with this battle that's going on and this
yeah.
massive burden in your life and this turmoil, and you're
Mm.
just looking at people getting on with their lives and you're like, this is a travesty, like what's going on here? Like,
Yeah, you feel like almost, well, I did on both sides of the operation. I felt like all this mental stuff, like my world turned upside down completely with that. And all the like I was just looking at people and thinking like they were laughing and everything. And it was really difficult for me to just relate to people at that time. And
mm,
especially more so when I came out of hospital, it was really hard for me to relate to people. And it took me a long time to kind of get to grips with that, and to kind of realize that other people are going through really difficult things as well. I think that's hugely important thing, that I've learned anyway, that something that I didn't really take into account a lot of the time before, was that people might seem like they have everything. Like they could have a load of money, they could, I don't know, have a great job, that like all these different things. But there might be a lot of stuff that's going on in their life that you don't know about. That's really difficult.
yeah, it's
Um,
mad. Don't compare
yeah,
your insides with other people's outsides.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
That's so that your way of coping, or the mindset that you chose was, well, look, it could be a lot worse. There's other people out there with a lot worse ailments and
mm,
suffering and challenges going on than me. So you
yeah,
chose to compare yourself to people that might have it a lot worse, and that was your motivation to say it's not that bad, and that was your kind of way of looking at it in a more positive way.
yeah. I think, well, that's definitely one of them. I definitely, one of the things that worked for me was I looked at it really logically, and I was like, right, this has to happen now. I've made the choice. I'm having the operation. I could have backed out of it, of course, but like it didn't wasn't really an option because of what I said before. But I I just thought that I would. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. I was, yeah, I definitely I looked at other people and all the different things that people have been through, and not just this operation because it was so rare. I couldn't really find anyone. Like there are people that have it all the time, but just I couldn't find anyone on the internet that had kind of been through it and recovered and stuff like that. So I knew people have been paralyzed before. I know people have had like crazy operations and have gotten through it, or like just people are going through life and have terminal cancer and they're walking around with a smile on their face, and
Mm,
the strength that it takes for that person to do that sort of thing is massive. So
mm,
other people have other people have done incredible things, and like I wasn't comparing my situation to that, but those things were incredible to me. So I thought, like, what, I can't really complain about this. I have to get through it, and just be as positive as possible, and know that there is a risk that when I wake up that I could be paralyzed, or there could be some. I remember going in before the operation and seeing someone limping, and like he had a crutch coming out of the ward that I was going into, and I was like, geez, I hope I don't come out with a limp. And little
how
did I know
long
it
did
was
it,
going to be a lot worse.
and how long did it take you to kind of adapt to this being your new normal?
um, Before the operation,
Yeah, like this, like I know when
I
drastic
don't know
things
that
come
I
into our
did,
lives,
but like I
but
I probably fooled myself a lot of the time thinking that I was okay. The reason I say that now is because before I had the operation, they fill you with a load of drugs and they put you to sleep. But apparently, I started like crying and going mental before, and I'd been really happy. So I don't know if that was all like on the inside, all of this inner turmoil that was going on.
yeah,
That kind of let itself out just before the operation, the fear and everything. That was obviously going on inside me. But I think I was trying to be mentally strong for myself and for everyone around me as well, so that because there was like, I, I, I didn't see the benefit of thinking negatively the whole time going into it. Like it wouldn't set me up to have the operation and come out the other side if I was thinking negatively the whole time. I needed to be
yeah,
really focused and positive, and when I woke up, it was whatever happened. It was like go go go, recover 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 recover, and that's kind of the way I went into it. But yeah, it was it when you were talking about looking at other people around you and their lives just seeming so normal, that was difficult. And like even I explained to two of my mates over a pint like a few weeks before, and they just didn't really get it, and I knew they didn't. And I told my housemate, and I knew after I explained to him, I was like, it's really risky, and he was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's just really chilled out sort of guy. Um,
mm,
but it wasn't his fault. Like it's just like it. I had been. This had all been explained to me in such detail. It was just difficult for me to explain it to other people. But yeah, so like I suppose after the operation, anyway, I had the operation, and it was instead of it being 3 hours, it was 6 hours, and it turned out when they did cut in to the back of my neck that it was growing on my nerves, which made things a lot more complicated.
well,
Um, they thought that it was detached from my nerves, which would have just been go in, suck it out, and they just like suck out tumors. And as far as I know anyway, from the videos that I've watched. But they they stopped the operation after 6 hours because they thought that they paralyzed me on the right side. And then when I woke up, I couldn't move anything from the neck down, or feel anything from the neck down. So I I woke up and I was just like, shite. Like, this is,
Shy.
yeah,
First
like,
word there was now shy.
just like in my head, I was kind of like, I was like, you're still kind of on some drugs and stuff like that. No, I wasn't on morphine or anything like that. I didn't take morphine. It's like a liquid form of diazepam, which kind of just muscle relaxant and stuff like that,
Mm,
makes you a bit happy and stuff. But I woke up and I was like, right, okay, everything, this has happened. The what I didn't want to happen has happened, and I've woken up and I can't feel anything, and I can't move anything. And I was just like, okay, I just need to work on this now, and sort of, it's weird. It's almost easier when you're in hospital because there's so many people around you constantly that are like telling you this is what's wrong with you, and like, this is, we're going to have a physio appointment the next day. But the difficult bit was when my parents and my ex came in, and the doctor, and the doctor looked white, which was a bit worrying. And my dad was like tapping my arm and my legs, and he was like, can you feel that? And I was like, no, I can't feel any of that. And that was weird. Like, that was pretty scary when he did that, like, that I just couldn't move or respond. Like, you're looking at your limbs and you just can't move them.
mm,
But I had all this, like, with nerve damage, like, I don't know if it happens to everyone, but I have like these electric pulses
mm,
rushing through my body, and had done at that, which was a good sign because it means the nerves are trying to react. But yeah, so my left arm started moving within a few hours, which was great.
oh,
I don't know how many hours because it all kind of seems a bit crazy like that whole time. But the rest of it, then it started from one finger on my right hand twitching, probably a few days or something later, and
but it
maybe a
says
week.
something that might seem tiny was massive. Just to see, well, I've just moved my little finger, like,
Yeah, yeah,
and just the miracle in that after being what
yeah.
you've been through, when you're kind of like, boy, I need to see what's coming back here. You know what I mean? Because it
Mm,
was like, I say the suspense just to know like how your recovery is going to be is dependent on how much you can move your body on the few hours, days, or weeks after that operation. Like, what's going to come back? What will I have use of again?
yeah, yeah. And that, like, I think one of the things that also told myself before going in, like, if someone's going to tell me something that I can't do something, I'm not taking that for like the gospel truth. We're going to find out a way to like recover.
I
Like, and
love that. But
I
it's mad
read,
as well that like when you even think of the stuff that the fear of not being in control, like, and that's one of the
mm,
scary things, that we're not in control of this outcome. I'm not in control of the situation, and like, there's not and truly only two things that we are in control of in life. It's how we can prepare for a situation, and how we respond to a situation. And Viktor Frankl has that quote. When we are no longer able to change the situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And trying to fit into these new set of circumstances into our life,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's where the transition is at, when we're trying to, like we were chatting about, this is my new normal, and a new mindset, and a new set of tools, and a new perspective to dealing with this new circumstance that I find myself in.
yeah, yeah. Like, one of the things I actually read a story about. I'm pretty sure he was an Irish guy that was in Australia, and he was on his surfboard, came off the surfboard, hit his head into the sand, and he was paralyzed. And he ended up in, like, he almost nearly drowning in the water. But I remember I read all that, and he recovered, and he was even longer in hospital than me. Like, I was in hospital
Wow.
a month, and then intensive rehab for 3 months. But I'd made a good recovery while I was in that month, so I didn't have to go in as an inpatient. I basically I'd go in 5 days a week, I get 2 trains and a bus to this place to try and almost reintegrate myself into
Mm.
normal life. Because that was the really scary bit coming out of hospital, like was all the noise and everyone being so normal around me, and all this just mental, like, whirlwind of emotions and physical feelings going on in my body and mind, and just trying to be normal and trying to, like what you said, trying to find the new normal, whatever that is.
Mm.
But then
Trying to
not
accept the new normal.
yeah, well, like I definitely, one of the things I definitely didn't want to do was like accept that this was the way I was going to be. um
Okay.
because I was like, I'm gonna get better no matter what. Like,
Yeah.
um, and like moving on from the like twitch my finger, I'd then my middle finger maybe move, and my dad had come over to stay in London while I was over there, and I was like, did my middle finger just move there? And he was like, do it again, and I try my hardest, and he was like, yeah, it twitched there. So
I love that.
yeah, and then I'd like move more of my fingers, and that would take a few days. But you're being like picked up and put into wheelchairs. You can't wash yourself. You have a catheter in where, so you can't go to the toilet yourself. Like, with like everything is just, it's all like taken away from you. And like there are, like, I only had to do this now for a little bit. So like there are people that do this on a lot longer term basis, and they walk around with a smile on their face, and or they're just they can be like, they get on with their life. So I didn't want to sit around, not moaning, but like just feeling sorry for myself.
Mm.
um and there were so many amazing people that I met in hospital. Like there was one day when I was feeling really sorry for myself, I was going into the intensive rehab hospital, and there was a guy that had no arms and no legs, and he was like propped up on crutches and sort of like stints or something for his legs, but he was like the happiest person around. And
Wow, that's powerful. That's like,
yeah, it just hit me like,
yeah, it's so motivational, isn't it? And it's many little things like that. We need little things every day to motivate us. Like, you know what I mean? I had that the other day when, I was out running. I was doing a charity run yesterday and I was exhausted and about
yeah,
to stop. And like, that inner critic, that negotiator in my head was saying, I just stop, you're doing well, and I was dying to keep going, like, because I think it was like over the lads, easy said them run, they raised over 4 grand for
class.
Alzheimer's. And
Yeah,
I remember looking across the road and I seen this like this dude, he was like fairly overweight and he didn't look comfortable at all. And while he was running, but I just seen his face, how determined he was, and there was something there that was saying, okay, I'm doing this. And I just found out, I was like, wow, I just wanted to go and give the guy a hug and just say, thanks,
yeah,
man, you've really inspired me today. And
yeah,
it's mad when you can go out in the street and even see the walking motivation. The most motivational things you'll see is that, people that are getting on with their lives after getting exposed to such difficult circumstances. Someone, it's on to a mate there that he recently found out that him and his partner can't get pregnant, like, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
they're getting on with it, or, someone else that's kind of going back dating after a big divorce, or a guy going for a walk, or sorry, going like a guy, getting on with his life after getting into a wheelchair, or,
mm,
whatever it may be, that how we can overcome difficult situations that we think we'd never be able to overcome. But
yeah,
as soon as we find ourselves in them, we adapt, and how brave and courageous that is. Like, and you see it day in, day out. When you said, like what you said there, when you start to notice these things and look around and see it in these people. If you're looking for like motivation, go and look at the incredible superheroes that are walking among us, that are getting on with their lives. Like you on the way home on that bus journey, you just have to get in this news, and and how brave and courageous it takes to go and make a decision like that. Like, will I, let this thing grow in me and potentially kill me, or will I get this really high risk operation? And it's incredible. Like, you know what I mean? It's just the strength that our as a human that we have, that we don't think we're capable of having, but it's there. It's in all of us that we dig deep. we're all capable of doing these incredible things and
Yeah.
overcoming the most difficult situations. Like,
Yeah. That is the thing that I feel that everyone is capable of doing these things. Like it's not you're born. I personally think this anyway, that everyone just needs to, you need to think of it in the right way and you'll be able to do it. Like
mm,
they seem like impossible tasks, but so many people, normal people, get through all of these things and are living with these really difficult situations on a day in day out basis and taking strength from those people. And what I try and do now is, and I'm still learning all the time, but I'm trying to learn from other people and look at all of these things and slow down and appreciate when people are doing like amazing things, like being in a wheelchair for I was only in it for a few weeks. I had to
okay.
get in and out of it to walk, but
How
that
long did
gave
your
me a
like
new
rehab
perspective.
take to go from the bed to back walking again?
So I was weeks before, walking was, I wasn't like walking. It was like being able to shuffle to an
Mm,
area, and then I'd be exhausted by the time I got to that area. But that was, I'd say I stood within 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half. Um, and then once I could stand, I used to have this electronic bed that I could lower and raise. I wasn't meant to be getting out of the bed myself because it was dangerous. Like if I fell out of the bed, they have these things on either side so you don't fall out because you could hit your
mm,
head on the concrete floor. But I used to lower them down anyway and lower the bed down and shuffle my way to the end of the bed. And I do squats in the morning before breakfast. I kind of like have something. I could only use my left hand at this stage, but my right arm was just immobile. So I have that to kind of steady myself, and I try and do 100 squats. This now that sounds like I jumped from doing that. There was a lot of stuff I did in the bed, like leg raises and different things.
And like,
Um,
what do you think was the thing that was motivating you the most to keep going? And like, what did you like? Was you think your girlfriend at the time, your parents, going traveling somewhere, something you
um,
wanted, some life experience you wanted to achieve? If you ever got back walking, was there something that tended to pop into your head quite often that you were trying to
yeah,
attain?
yeah. I think like I was like, this isn't it. This is not. I'm not living the rest of my life lying down, and um, and I'm not living. I'm gonna get back to normal, and like, there's so much I want to do. Like, I want to go traveling. I was like, I want to do it. I was like thinking mad things, like I want to do a dance class and like all
Mm,
these things that never would have come into my head before in my life. I haven't done a dance class now, but
yeah.
like just random things popping into your head and thinking, why wouldn't I do that? Like what? Like
Mm,
I was like, I want to climb a mountain. I tried to book Kilimanjaro for a year later, which would have been a big no go because there would have been no hope I would have done
mm,
that. Um, but just like wanting to look, I basically I put everything into perspective, and then I look back and thought of all the times that I was feeling sorry for myself over little things and things that were really trivial and didn't matter. And I didn't really appreciate what I had and what
mm.
I could have. So
It's
I
mad.
kind,
It's like that
yeah,
old saying, like a happy man wants 1,000 things, a sick
mm,
man only wants one thing. Like, and how
yeah,
we take the simple things for granted. And I think that people that I've met throughout my life that have come from like a near death experience or a place of like extreme struggle, or extreme darkness, that their love for the simple things today, because they know what it's like not to be able to appreciate the simple things. I'd have my struggles with addiction and mental health, and I know
mm,
what it's like not to walk off the Tesco and have a panic attack, and that's why I'm
yeah,
grateful today to have to go for a little walk and to have peace of mind. That I
yeah,
take, you can take any material matter or materialistic thing in my life, have it. I don't care anymore. Like, just to have that peace of mind. And I remember hearing this great story that this guy is in a village and he has a dream one day that a monk's going to walk through the village and hand him a diamond, the world's most valuable diamond. And he wakes up the next day and goes, "Oh, that was only a dream." And next thing, he's going through the town and he sees this monk walking in, and he goes, He runs over to him and goes, any chance, have you got a diamond for me? He goes, oh, you must be John. Yeah, no worries, here you go. Hands him a diamond. And he goes, oh, cheers, man. And he goes back to the tree. And he's sitting at this tree pondering all day because something's wrecking his head about this whole situation. And he
Yeah.
runs back to the monk and he throws a diamond at him. He says, I don't want that diamond. I want to be able to give away the world's most valuable diamond, just like you did there, and what I got from that story was that, like, it's not about the things that we have, it's our ability to, find peace no matter the circumstances or no matter what we have around us. Like, you know what I mean? That
Mm.
to know that peace is an inside job and it's not about the stuff on the outside, and that when we can learn to adore and love the simple things around us, that's the gift of life. Like, you know what I mean? To be able to appreciate, a bit of time with a loved one, to be able to appreciate a sunrise or a sunset, to be able to appreciate that you're healthy enough to appreciate these things, that your mental health and your physical health is all intact and all in order enough to love these things. Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what I feel I'm blessed for, that you don't really know what you have till it's gone, or it's been, like even the simplest things, like.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Um, I think like some of the like really difficult times that I had when I left hospital, like I remember feeling, you were talking about mental health, and I suppose it's something that like the same as the physical thing, I was just pushing it away. Like I thought I'm always fine. But when all of this was going on, like you have like almost suicidal thoughts that come into your head.
Yeah.
And things like when I was waiting for the tube and the tube coming in, and thinking like, what would happen if I just threw myself in front of this now? And like it seems like a crazy dark thought. And like another time I remember like thinking, when I was on holiday after the operation, we were walking around a marina, and I was looking into the water, and it was just this, it was at night and dark, and I was thinking, if I jumped in there now, no one could save me because I couldn't swim. No one would be able to get me out. And I don't know why these things were coming into my head. And like it, when those things started happening, I like had to start like kind of start talking about things a bit more, and being realistic that like I knew something was wrong. And I didn't go to a therapist, which I probably should have at the time, but the things that kind of helps me were talking about it and being honest about the stuff that was happening,
Mm,
and exercising a lot,
yeah.
keeping myself occupied, and feeling that I was I try and keep myself busy these days, but not so busy that I feel that I'm not appreciating things. It's busy that I'm experiencing life, and that I'm not just sitting around on the couch. Like today, I went down. I was telling you before this that went down and sat by the sea and read my book for about 2 hours, and then I went for a swim and came back, and I feel great now. And if flip that around, and if I just sat around all day and watched Netflix or something like that, like I wouldn't have been as happy or content
What,
going to bed. I feel like I kind of am doing things.
what do you think? What do you think are like the biggest changes from the Dave before he got that news, a phone call from the doctor to come in to the hospital, and the Dave today? What would you say are the biggest changes in you?
Um, I would say I was someone that was quite insecure, probably. I, on the face of it, I wasn't, but internally I was, because I wasn't being honest, and
And
I
what
was
what
scared
was
to take
what was your
risks.
biggest insecurity?
Um, things like scared of failure,
Mm.
wants people to like me. What other things? Feeling that
And
you're not good enough sometimes, like
and
comparing yourself to other people.
it's funny. God, my observation of this would be you were insecure about all the things that you couldn't control, but subconsciously you knew you couldn't control, but still felt insecure about them. And then when you went through this big ordeal of something that you couldn't control, you realize what's the point of being insecure about things you can't control? Like, you know what I mean?
Mm,
And just
yeah,
accept them as they are because I can't
yeah,
control them. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like it kind of it it helps me a lot. Like I would have loved to not gone through it. But I think I've come out a more
How,
honest
how would you
person.
view the whole ordeal now? In
Um,
one word, how would you describe it?
um, Mental. No, I like how I've come out of it, I suppose. Um, just growth, I would say, is a
Beautiful.
good word, because it was really difficult to go through, but from I met all these amazing people while I did it. Like even I remember the cleaner coming in every day, Patrick from Nigeria in hospital, and he was like just this really interesting person, and you just like you meet all these like fantastic people, and um just people wanting to share their story with you as well.
Mm,
And it just it and like all of those like I was talking about the kind of the suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. I read a book, um, that I think it's the happiness hypothesis, and I
I've
think
heard
it's
of
in
it.
that. Yeah, I think it's in that one, but or it's in a different one. But the thought of like say throwing yourself in front of a tube, that's one of those mental thoughts, that one of those thousands and thousands of thoughts that come
Mm,
through your head. It doesn't actually mean that that's what you want to do. It's
yeah,
just like what if I did this, and it
yeah.
scared me when it happened, but
What it is,
it
it's mad, man. I used to be tortured by my thoughts. I used to like that, getting them thoughts, and I found them real disturbing. And I thought there was something wrong with
yeah,
me. And
disturbing, exactly.
yeah, and what I realize is that it's not like you're going down to thoughts incorporated and asking for these thoughts to come into your head. These thoughts are intrusive. Where are they coming from? Who put them there? I didn't fill out an application form. So yeah, I'd like
Yeah,
to have suicidal thoughts on Tuesday in May at 2 o'clock, please. And please send us as many as you can. I'd like to have critical thoughts that put me down and say I'm not good enough. I'd like to
yeah,
have thoughts that say I'm a piece of shit, or or that I'm a bad person, or that whatever it is. I'd like all these thoughts, please. Please send as many as you can. We didn't do that. We can't control the thoughts that come into our head. We can only control how we respond and how much we want to entertain these thoughts and take them as gospel, or we can take them as just background noise. And I was watching that film, A Beautiful Mind,
oh yeah,
Russell
it's a great
Crowe.
film.
Have you seen this? It's
Yeah, yeah,
about the maths musician, and he has schizophrenia, and he starts
yeah,
getting these illusions of these different characters that no one else can see, and they're shouting abuse at him and calling him mad. And he wins a Nobel Prize. He's a teacher in a real real high prestigious college, and he's trying to get on with his life, and these thoughts are shouting and screaming at him, and he's shouting back at them in the middle of the college, and the students are looking at him, oh, this guy's crazy, he should be locked up and blah blah blah. But he gets on with his life, and he learns to just live in harmony with these illusions that no one else can see, only him. And that, not to deny them, but just recognize them, see them there, and don't react to them and shout at them, and just not acknowledge them. and
mm,
and then he lives in harmony and peace with them, and he's able to get on with his life. Although the illusions are still there, and he's still seeing these characters that no one else can see, he no
yeah,
longer reacts to them shouting at him, and he doesn't shout back. And I think
yeah,
that's a lot of the time with our own thoughts, that we can learn to live in harmony with them. And sometimes they might actually benefit us. Like I was going for a run yesterday, and as I said, I'm a real like run wanker. I'm to have to
you're
tell
running,
everyone.
rubbing it in, are you?
Yeah, rubbing it in. But like when we started this run in my head, I had that like care, that good angel, bad angel. I had that caring right voice that was like, do you know what? It's pissing rain. Don't go for the run. Just say you have a little
Yeah,
niggle or something and go home to bed, and you'd be
yeah,
grand. And but then that inner critic started up, and he was like, get out, you lazy lumpy, and get out and do that run. And
yeah,
and I listened to that inner critic, man, and I smashed the run. And what I realize is that sometimes we have like there's like tools in the garden. Sometimes you need the trowel, sometimes you need the spade, some days you need the shovel. And it's like that inner critic and that caring voice. They're like tools that we have. Sometimes
mm,
they might benefit us, but sometimes they won't. And it's like if you were the word water, like water is great for the flowers in the garden, but it's also bad for it if you use it too much. So if I
yeah,
had to use that inner critic was great for getting me activated and going for the run. But if I was to still use that inner critic when I finished the run, I'd be beating myself up because I didn't run fast enough, or the guy
yeah,
beside me was much faster, etc. But if we had to use that caring voice after the run, I'd acknowledge my achievement and say, well done. So it's like just you when to utilize these thoughts, when to pick them up and use it as a tool, like Edgar Tolle talks about in The Power Now, that our
Mm.
thoughts are problem finding, problem solving tools. So we pick up a task and analyze, and what's the problem, what's the solution, and we put it down. Like our tool, that our mind is a tool that we have to learn to pick up and put down at the right time. But I think in the Western world that we've learned to be constantly in our minds and constantly looking for stimulation and not having a way of putting it down and turning it off. And you talked about reading a book, going for a sea dip. I'm very similar in my means. It's switching off the head and being in the present moment as well. And I think
Yeah.
that's important to recognize that your thoughts is just your brain doing its job, and it's up to us to know when to turn it off and know when to not listen to our thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. Do you meditate yourself?
I meditate. So
Yeah.
I do lots of different forms of mindfulness and meditation. Like breathing can be one of them. I
Mm.
find like even exercise or writing poetry, creativity, swimming, reading, whatever kind of brings you into the present moment, and you feel just engaged in and aware of what's going on around you, where you're not in your thinking intellectual mind, that you're just
Yeah.
in the here and now.
Yeah. I did that. Like I've done loads of different types of meditating over the years, and one actually I found really good is just staring at a candle, just at the flame in the dark, because it kind of keeps your attention.
That's
Um,
beautiful. Like, yeah, I'd be a bit of a pyromaniac. Like, I used to love going down to my nanny's house, man, and I just stare at the fire, like as if it was like the Champions League final. I just stare at the
yeah,
fire and just be so like engaged with it.
it's really relaxing.
Oh, it's so
Um,
relaxing, man.
that the I did the breathe with Neil,
Mm.
it's Neil.
The Wim Hof.
Yeah, it was brilliant. That was that's kind of one of the things that I've got from that's something that I thought, yeah, that'd be cool to do. But the old me might have been like, oh, that's like rubbish. There's no way that'd work. And kind of like listen to, I don't know, the general thought from other people, like getting in the sea is nonsense, like breathing is nonsense. But I was like, oh, now I want to just try new things all the time. And I did that, and I thought it was amazing. Like just getting in the ice water, and you feel unbelievable afterwards. I tried to do it at home afterwards, put a load of ice in the bath, and nearly had hypothermia after. It didn't
Um,
go as well as actually as the
yeah,
class.
I'm getting used to it now. So my thing is now when like I'm getting because I find that the season starting getting a bit warmer now, so you don't get the same kind of impact from the cold. Like in the winter, it's
Yeah,
great, but
yeah,
in the getting warmer now, it's hard to get that same cold buzz. So like,
yeah,
but my
yeah,
shower is really cold when I put on the cold setting, and I always find it really uncomfortable. Like, and I find so what I do now when we let practice is I get in the shower and I pick two songs and have it like a shower that might play the first song and with hot water. And then when the second song comes on my Spotify, I'll switch it to cold and do like and try and
the full
try,
song.
yeah, well, yeah, I'll do probably do it half. Like probably would. That's what a 6 hour, 6 minute shower. Um, I find that if we try and just hold the cold, and like the first one it was only 10 seconds, then 20, then 30, then a minute, then 2 minutes, and I'm building up. And sometimes I'll even dance in the shower, man. And I
Yeah,
just find that sometimes you just need a distraction, and it's when your mind's not focusing on the how uncomfortable it is, yeah, and you just find a little distraction. I find them dancing. I'm like what you said. You're like, we're the opponent. Like, find
yeah,
what's making you feel uncomfortable and dance with it. And it's not
yeah,
learning about avoiding the rain. It's like learning to dance, and that's what I found that. That's like my analogy for life now. You know what I mean? To become comfortable with the uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Dancing in
yeah,
agony, like you know what I mean.
yeah,
That's what I'm trying to do, and I feel great as I knock off that shower. And I just feel like I'm floating then, it's like a form of therapy. And I
yeah,
love being able to discover all these natural remedies that are at our fingertips, like.
yeah. Big time, big time.
Yeah,
Um,
but
like I'm trying to do things to scare me more, and like I don't do it all the time. Like I'm like I'll definitely chicken out of things and stuff, but like I try and not do that now. And like I had a fear, wasn't scared of speaking in public, but like I didn't feel comfortable doing it, and I would not feel comfortable jumping up in front of 50 people or writing a speech. But that's why I joined Toastmasters, which is public speaking. And that has been great to just realize that, like, I have a speech now on Tuesday, my second speech. I was
Wow.
all these like
And it's something
coming
you'd
up
be
to it too.
great at as well, because you're really
Thanks,
articulate and you're well spoken, and
thanks, man.
I think you'd be brilliant at that.
Yeah, so yeah, once you finish it, you feel great. Like that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Like, just all these things that I'm like, I can't do that, and then
Yeah.
like all the work that you have to do to get there in 2
Mm.
weeks. Like, I have to write a speech from scratch, and it can be on anything. To talk for 7 minutes,
Yeah.
and like all of this, like, you can't do it. People will think like your story's stupid, or like, and there's no nobody cares. Like, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like, so it's
But
becoming comfortable with all of that.
it's like what we were saying about them anxious thoughts, that they're very uncomfortable, but they won't harm us and they won't kill us. The same as a panic attack. Have that little mantra.
Yeah,
It's like getting up on the stage. It's very uncomfortable. It's one of my
yeah,
biggest fears, but it won't kill me. And if I'll keep leaning into this thing that scares me until it doesn't scare me anymore,
yeah,
and I think that's how we overcome fears, you know what I mean? By leaning into them and exposing our vulnerabilities to them. And like, it's like the kid, shining the light under the bed to let them know there's no monsters under there. And it's usually the stuff we're afraid of. It's just we've perceived this big thing in our heads that I'll get up on the stage, everyone will reject me and judge me and point out
yeah,
all my insecurities and my faculties. And then when I get up on the stage and I do my speech and people clap and say well done and shake my hand when I come down, and I've realized then that was just this false narrative, a false thing that I made up in my head, this false story that I was
yeah,
going to be judged and rejected, but it wasn't. Again, it was just the inner critic. And who won that battle? Was it the imagination of my inner critic, or was it me leaning in to my inner critic and giving them giving it the two fingers and just being able to do the shit that scares me in life?
yeah,
And that's it, man. I think that's where growth is, when we lean into the stuff that frightens us, you know what I mean? And try
mm,
to find all them worthy opponents in our life. But come here, man. I know that we're kind of just hitting the time now. So just a question I want to ask you:
sure, yeah.
if you were on the bus, you jumped on that bus and you seen
Hmm.
yourself just after getting that news on the way home from the hospital, as we talked about, you sat down beside yourself, what would you say to yourself?
Jeez, that's a
To
good
Dave
question.
now.
I like that question. I'd probably give myself a hug and say that I know everything seems terrifying right now, but you'll get through it. It seems a lot worse than it actually is. But things will work out, and you just need to keep positive about it, and you'll get there.
Beautiful, man. I love that. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? And I always think to myself, even when I was going through hard times like that, if I could go back and just give myself a hug and say, "Man, you got this. You're worthy. Stop putting yourself down. You're a great guy. Stop beating
Yeah,
yourself up." And I always thought if I had a time machine, I'll go and do that. And then still the days I get that when I do feel low and I do feel really down. I'm like,
yeah,
just call him in the future now, though. She has a time machine, go and give me a hug and say, "Man, you're a great guy. You'll get through this. This will pass. Just keep
yeah, yeah,
trudging, brother." And
yeah.
that always gives me hope, that I know there's me in the future saying, "Don't worry, man, you got this. Keep going. Good times are ahead."
I like that. I'll use that. I'll definitely use that.
Dave, bro, thanks a million, man. I'll catch you down the big pond for the dip soon, yeah?
Definitely, Collie. Pleasure. Thanks for
Been an
having me.
absolute. Come here. What's next on the horizon? Do you think? What's your next big
Uh,
endeavor?
what's my next big endeavor? I think I'm gonna do an MBA for my career. I'm
What's
going
sorry
to
for us layman? What's an MBA?
it's a master's of business administration.
Well,
So I always kind of, that's another thing. I'd always been like, oh, I'd love to do a master's, but thinking, do it, am I good enough, and kind of putting it off. And I would think, why not?
mm,
Why can't I do it? If other people do it, why not? And then a physical thing that I want to do is I want to climb Kilimanjaro. I'm still going to do that. I'm going to do that in the next 3 years. If I do an MBA, that'll be 2 years. So I've set a goal of 3 years for the Kilimanjaro. And then probably the third thing is to make a load of mistakes along the way and then learn from
That's where we learn, bro. That's where we get the
Yeah,
wisdom. Touching that
exactly.
hot stove over and over, just to be sure, to be sure. Yeah, we're going
Yeah.
up, we're hiking up Mountain Laguna, is it? I can't pronounce it.
Oh, Lugnaquilla.
Yeah, so if you're around, man, you want to come up, man, next Saturday.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, deadly,
Yeah, I
bro.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, man. Looking forward to it. Right, man.
Deadly.
Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure, bro, and enjoy the rest of your day. I'm just gonna knock this off now.